trance. Unheard voices rise tonight. Let them speak up and shine their light. No more shadows, no more shame. Say the hurt, say the name. They ain't Superman, they're human too, and they need someone to pull them through. We cry in silence, but not tonight. Tonight we scream, we claim the right. Boy or man, hear the plea. Let me feel, let me be me. Unheard no more. We take a stand, not just a burden, not just a man.
He's drowning in a sea of be okay, but who saves the hero at the end of the day? They clap when he stands, not when he breaks. Can't show weakness, too much is at stake. Every boy told not to feel too deep, just hold it in, go back to sleep. While fear and doubt eat him alive, and still he smiles to survive. This ain't weakness, this is real. This is asking just to feel. Let the boy cry, let the man rest. Let him breathe and not be less. You say man up, but unheard voices rise tonight. Let them speak, let them shine the light.
Welcome to the Unheard Voices podcast, where silence ends and the real stories begin. Today, we rip the lid off a subject most are too afraid to touch. This isn't just about growing up, it's about surviving. It's boy and man versus society. And trust me, this fight starts way earlier than you think. So if you're tired of surface-level talk, if you're ready to confront the raw, the real, the unfiltered truth, buckle up. Because this isn't just a conversation, it's a reckoning. Let's get into it.
Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling something tough, a really uncomfortable truth, an issue that just seems to stay hidden, especially in Southern Africa. We're talking about the police injustice, the really profound injustice faced by men who are victims of gender-based violence, GBV. We're focusing particularly on South Africa and Botswana. And look, this isn't just some small oversight. It feels more like a systemic breakdown. Just picture it for a second. A man, maybe he's been physically hurt, maybe emotionally abused, finds the courage, and it takes immense courage to report it. And what happens? He's met with mockery, dismissal, sometimes even locked up himself, wrongly accused. While the person who actually abused him, often a woman in these specific cases we're discussing, faces, well, nothing. Zero consequences. It's a system that, in these moments, seems fundamentally broken. It discriminates against men, plain and simple, and leaves them suffering, often completely alone. So our mission today is to dig into why. Why does this deep-seated gender bias stick around in police forces, in society, and maybe more importantly, what actual practical solutions can start to fix this? Think of this as your shortcut to understanding this really critical, but often ignored side of GBV. We just feel it's crucial to bring this out into the open.
Absolutely. It's more than just unfortunate, isn't it? The way men are treated in these situations. Frankly, it's shameful. It really undermines the whole idea of justice, of equality. It's a conversation we've put off for far too long, I think. We really need to tackle it head on.
Okay, so let's unpack that. When we talk about male victims, say in South Africa or Botswana, what does this dismissal, this mistreatment actually look like? What's the common thread you see?
Well, the first thing that really jumps out, and it's consistent, is this deeply ingrained gender bias within the police forces themselves. There's this almost automatic assumption. Men are the aggressors. Women are the victims. That's the default setting,
No, right.
And that default perception, it just creates this incredibly hostile, unwelcoming environment for any man trying to report abuse against him.
So when a man does step forward, the response isn't just unsupportive, it's actively harmful.
Exactly. Actively damaging. We hear these stories over and over, men being told things like, be a man, or you're weak for letting her do that. And sometimes even handle your woman at home. I mean, can you imagine? It's not just a lack of sympathy, it's invalidating their entire experience.
And the consequences of that.
Oh, they're serious. We've documented cases where men, the actual victims, end up spending a night in a police cell, sometimes longer.
Because they weren't believed or accused themselves.
Both. Either disbelieved entirely or worse, the police flip it and accuse him of being the aggressor. And all the while, the actual perpetrator, the woman in these cases, often walks away. Even with clear evidence against her. No repercussions.
That is just shocking. You mentioned a specific case from Johannesburg that really highlights this. Could you tell us a bit about that? Sounds like a stark example.
Yes, that Johannesburg case.
Yeah.
It really sticks with you. It involved a man who'd been seriously physically assaulted by his wife. He called the police right away. Now, you'd expect them to focus on the assailant, right? But instead,
what happened?
the officers who arrived spent hours questioning him. interrogating him, treating him like he was the problem, the one who started it. Their suspicion was all on him.
Instead of arresting her.
Exactly. Instead of dealing with the person who committed the assault. And look, this wasn't just one or two officers having a bad day. It points to something much bigger. It's a terrifying example of how the system itself seems programmed to dismiss men as potential victims. It doesn't just deny them justice, it puts them in more danger.
That's incredibly hard to process. Which brings us straight to the why. Why does this happen? Is it purely cultural? Or are there problems rooted deep within the police and legal systems themselves in these countries?
That's the key question, really. And the answer is it's definitely both. It's a dual problem. There's a strong cultural element, but it's also deeply institutional.
Okay, let's start with the cultural side. What are those norms in Southern Africa?
Culturally, the ideas around masculinity are just incredibly powerful and deeply rooted. Men are expected to be the breadwinners, the protectors, strong, dominant figures,
Unyielding, almost.
Precisely. Unyielding. And that creates this environment where any sign of vulnerability in a man isn't just ignored, it's often openly mocked, seen as weakness. It creates a huge barrier before a man even thinks about going to the police.
So that pressure to be strong basically stops men from even admitting they're being abused, let alone reporting it.
Absolutely. There's just this massive, overwhelming stigma attached to men experiencing GBV. Society tells them, implicitly or explicitly, handle it yourself. Don't let a woman control you. That kind of thing. So to keep up this image of strength, many, many men just suffer in silence. And it's not just the police. They face potential ridicule from their communities, friends, even their own families. It makes speaking out incredibly difficult.
Okay, so that's the cultural pressure. What about the institutions, the laws, the police procedures? Surely there are laws against domestic violence that apply to everyone.
Yes, on paper, the laws are there. South Africa has its Domestic Violence Act. Botswana has its own. These offer general protections. But the real issue is enforcement.
They're not applied equally.
Exactly. They are often seriously under-enforced when the victim is male. And a huge part of that comes down to police training, or rather the lack of it. Officers are frequently just undertrained in even recognizing that men can be victims of domestic violence. Their training often focuses almost entirely on scenarios with female victims.
So they're not equipped.
They're ill-equipped to identify it, sometimes even to believe it when it's right in front of them. And then there's the accountability issue.
What about that?
There's very little, often no, real accountability for officers who mock male victims or dismiss their claims, or worse. They usually face no consequences for failing in their duty.
Why not? Is there no oversight?
There's often a lack of specific systemic oversight mechanisms designed to ensure gender-neutral responses in GBV cases. So bad behavior often goes unchecked. And that lack of accountability, it's a massive wall blocking justice for these men.
Right, so it's this tangled mess of cultural norms, laws that aren't properly enforced, poor training, and no real consequences for police misconduct. It feels overwhelming. What can actually be done? What are the crucial steps, the tangible solutions to start breaking this cycle and get these men the help and justice they need?
Well, the starting point has to be a fundamental change, a complete overhaul, really, in police training.
What would that look like?
We need specialized mandatory training for all officers, focusing squarely on gender-neutral responses to GBV. It's not enough to just say, oh yeah, men can be victims too. The training has to equip officers to understand the specific, unique challenges male victims face, like those societal pressures about masculinity we talked about, the intense stigma, the isolation they often feel.
So deconstructing those biases they might not even realize they have.
Exactly. Getting to the root of those automatic assumptions. It needs to be deep, practical training.
Okay, training is vital. But what about the officers already on the force, the ones who might be part of the problem now? How do you ensure accountability for them?
That's the other critical piece. You absolutely have to enhance police accountability. Officers who mock, dismiss, or worse, wrongly detain male victims, they must face real consequences for their actions.
So a harder stance on misconduct.
A much harder stance, yes. Especially when someone's safety, their well-being is on the line. Without that accountability, any new training could just end up being, window dressing. How can a system claim to provide justice if the people enforcing it aren't held responsible?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It feels like we need some immediate practical tools, too, things that could make a difference quickly. Body cameras often come up when talking about police accountability. Could they help here?
Body cameras are absolutely crucial. I really think they could be a game changer in this context. It's a straightforward, practical solution we've seen work elsewhere.
How specifically for male GBV victims?
Well, imagine every interaction, especially when someone comes in to report GBV, is recorded objectively. That recording provides solid proof of what actually happened, how the victim was treated. Firstly, it acts as a deterrent, right? Officers are less likely to dismiss or mock someone if they know they're being recorded.
Sure.
But secondly, and maybe even more importantly, it gives male victims more confidence to come forward. They know there'll be an objective record, proof to back up their story if they're disbelieved or mistreated. It boosts transparency and protection significantly.
That's a really strong argument for body cams. Definitely increases transparency. Okay, so we talked police reform. What about the bigger picture, the laws and policies? Do they need changing?
I think so, yes. If we zoom out a bit, those existing domestic violence acts, while good in principle, maybe don't fully capture the specific dynamics and hurdles men face.
Yeah.
So yes, we probably need more specific legal frameworks. Policies that explicitly address the nuanced needs of male GBV victims.
Like what, for example?
Maybe policies that actually incentivize police accountability in these cases, or mandate very specific types of gender-sensitive training, going beyond just general clauses to really target the roadblocks men hit.
And moving beyond the legal and police systems, what about changing society's mind? How do we tackle those deep cultural biases with public awareness?
Public awareness campaigns are absolutely essential here. We need sustained campaigns that directly challenge this pervasive idea that only women can be victims of domestic violence. And these campaigns can't just be about information. They need to actively work towards creating safe spaces, places where men feel they can talk openly about what they're going through without being judged, without being mocked, without having their masculinity questioned.
So dismantling that stigma piece by piece.
Exactly. It's about changing the whole conversation, making it okay for men to be vulnerable and seek help.
And finally, if a man does find that courage, overcomes the stigma, gets past potentially unhelpful police, what support needs to be waiting for him?
That's crucial. Beyond the police station, beyond the courts, we need robust, accessible support systems specifically for male victims.
Like shelters, counseling.
Yes, things like dedicated safe houses for men, counseling services that understand their specific issues, maybe even helplines just for men. When a man reports abuse, the response has to be empathy, belief, and practical support, not ridicule. Ultimately, the entire justice system, from the police officer at the desk to the judge in the courtroom, needs to take male victims just as seriously as female victims. True justice has to be for everyone, right? Regardless of gender.
This has been, well, incredibly insightful and pretty sobering, too, I have to say. It's crystal clear there's a huge amount of work to do in both South Africa and Botswana to build a justice system that truly supports all victims, no matter their gender. And to you listening, wherever you might be, maybe it's time we all started speaking up for those who've been silenced for too long. We really need to push for genuine equality in how we deal with gender-based violence. It has to cover everyone affected.
Absolutely. The time for waiting is over. Men who are victims of abuse, just like all victims, they deserve to be heard, they deserve to be believed, and they deserve unwavering support now.
Couldn't agree more. So here's a final thought to take away. What does real justice actually look like if it doesn't reach everyone, if it doesn't challenge these deep ingrained biases we all carry, institutionally and personally? And maybe ask yourself, how can you, just in your own life, your own conversations, help change the story around vulnerability and strength for men, for women, for everyone? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. Unheard Voices Podcast.
Yo, step into the precinct, breathe the shallow, feeling weak. Got the marks beneath my shirt, too ashamed to even speak. But I muster up the courage, cause the pen won't let me rest. Tell the sergeant at the desk, my partner put me to the test. This was faster than the lies, still when company came. Verbal daggers in the dark, playing psychological games. So my brother held my tongue, fear locked deep inside. Now I'm here seeking justice, no one left to run to hide. He lifts up slow, raises his brow, leaves back in his creaking chair. Says it, what exactly happened? Did you put your hands up there? Tone shit to me, they sleep like a wedding, geek shoved out. Smoke a seal, you're Padilla, like a bargain in my trust, like a...
Showing pictures on my phone, bruises blooming black and blue. He's
just trunk domestic squabble. What you want the law to do?
File the report, check those over, come on. Maybe you provoked the fire, maybe something that you've done. Assumptions fly like trap, picking me as the aggressor. Ignoring all the evidence, maybe it's like the lesser.
Half your size. Another cop chimes in dismissive with a grin, like the way your fist and fury only counts is on her skin.
Fear takes all unknown, it's the threats that cause the dread. The way she twists the narrative at everybody's head. But try explaining drama when the bad things talking to you. See some man, assume the culprit ain't no victim, but you.